Any questions?
Mr. Penn Star CNS News. Have you spoken to anyone in the administration or on the other side of the aisle even, do you think, or HHS, to see if they're willing to fix this even without legislation, or do you feel this is really necessary to legislate?
Well, we have over the several months tried to get from the administration exactly how this would be implemented. We actually wrote letters to the insurance companies to ask them exactly, the top 10, exactly how they might interpret and whether or not they would be putting abortion and the surcharge into their plans. We got absolutely non-answers back. One paragraph answers that said almost like wait and see. Well, we've waited, and now what we're seeing is frightening. The largest expansion of a publicly funded abortion in the history of this country. And that will lead inevitably and facilitate more takings of human life. And that's why we were so concerned. And I said, and I mean it, and I know we all mean it, the other side of this issue, of the divide, ought to embrace this, because this is all about transparency. Let me say that again. It's all about transparency. If I sign up for a plan, and every month I pay a surcharge, it may be hidden in the larger premium. It's supposed to be separated out. It's not clear how that will work out. I want to be told up front and without any ambiguity that indeed the plan I'm buying has abortion in it or does not. My wife and I are members of the Federal Employees Health Benefits Plan, Blue Cross Blue Shield. In plain black and white, right there under maternity benefits, it says that abortion is not provided except in rape, incest, or life of the mother. I wrote that amendment in 1983, in effect throughout all these decades except for the first 2 years of the Clinton administration, when it was done away with, as were most of the other so-called riders on appropriations bills, except for the Hyde Amendment. So, this is a long-standing policy. The president, right, just several yards away from where we sit, told me and everyone else, all of us who were sitting in that joint session of Congress, and I quoted his comments, was he misleading? Because this absolutely violates the Hyde Amendment and the principles that upon which it's based, which is, like I said, two parts. Second part is we do not fund insurance policies that include abortion, and the Smith Amendment did exactly the same thing. So maybe they'll hear us down at HHS, Catherine Sebelius, maybe they will. I'm a bit skeptical, but I think you need to, with all due respect, need to ask these questions. Why is it hidden? Why a secrecy clause? It ought to be transparent. Yes, sir.
Tom Howell, Washington Times. I just want to know, it seems like there's little appetite among Democrats to touch the ACA. How much buy-in do you expect to get from various Democrats to actually do something about this?
Well, I think until October 1st, there was some wishful thinking that somehow abortion might not be as included as it is. That hope, it wasn't an expectation, but that hope has been absolutely dashed as we find out more and more as to what's going on. I mentioned two states already, Rhode Island and Connecticut, that all of their plans include abortion on demand. How does a health consumer buy a plan if he or she believes deeply in the sanctity of life? There is supposed to be set up a multi-state plan that includes a right to life provision. That hasn't been set up in those states yet. We know California, probably my state, but we don't know because we can't get any details 1 week later. But the trend is not a good one, which is why we want this transparency and for it to be clearly, Vicki mentioned, her bill that she brought up, and I thought that was an excellent point to make. Our original thinking was, anyone who's ever bought a mortgage, what do you have on the front page of that mortgage? Absolute full disclosure as to what the cost of that mortgage actually turns out to be. Here we're talking about life or death. There we're talking about purchasing and the cost of funds. And it's usually boxed and very clear. There's no ambiguity what that loan will cost you over 15 years or 30 years. Not so with the Affordable Care Act, where it is so obscure. And again, I did this myself. Went through Aetna and Blue Cross Blue Shield right here in D.C. There's not a mention as to what one might be buying and purchasing, and we're very concerned that that's going to happen. And pro-life Americans, conscientious objectors, will be buying plans and subsidizing it with their tax credits, which could be very significant tax credits, depending on their income, as well as their premiums, which means they are facilitating and subsidizing abortion. Yes, sir.
I'm Mark Strickers with the Colorado Observer. Is your basic argument that former Senator Ben Nelson's amendment is not being applied, or his amendment maybe helps confuse how
Well,
things are?
I have with me, and we have it for you, all of the language that deals with abortion. And it couldn't be more clear that without transparency that our legislation would require, there will be large numbers of Americans buying insurance policies without a clue that their premium dollars and their tax credits are subsidizing abortion on demand. Remember, the three exceptions that will be in all plans are rape, incest, and life of the mother. That's in the Hyde Amendments in the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program, it's in the DC Appropriations Rider, it's in all of them. But we're talking about on demand, even in late-term abortion. So his language, all the language that was offered on the Senate side has proved to be infirmed by the plain statute and how it's now being implemented. We raised some of these questions, I and many others, for a couple of years now. Most press were skeptical. It was almost like a wait-and-see attitude. Well, October 1st has now come around, and every time we get a look at a plan, either there's no mention, and that is very disconcerting because we don't know if it's in or not. And I mean, there's a possibility that members of Congress and staff who will now be on the exchanges will be paying for abortions in the DC shop, as they call it. We don't know what those plans are yet, but that would be violative of the Smith Amendment, which, again, has been in effect since 1983. Thank you so very much for coming out.